Hello, I'm still talking through the missions for the Danish nationals, the preliminary pack. I've reached the mission called Nuts. This one is from Bolt Action Alliance's mission pack. Nuts is a variation of key positions. You have five objectives, poker chip markers, where only the center of the objective counts. Each one of them is worth 2 victory points, and if there is a draw at the end, so you have exactly the same amount of objectives that are controlled by you and the opponent, then kill points will decide a draw. But only if there is a draw. This is a weird scenario in that way. It's the only one where that is the case, that a draw is decided by kill points. Sorry, a lot of light coming in. The sun is shining for the first time in weeks. So you take turns. One objective is placed in the center of the table, and then you take turns placing an objective in each of the quarters of the table. The objectives have to be 18 inches from the center of the board and 12 inches from other objectives. So here you have to think about where you want objectives to be. Do you want them to be loaded towards the edges of the board, or do you want them to be loaded towards the center and the middle of the board, right? Where is it that you want the fight to be at? Where do you want, is your army something that has static elements that wants to be on the back line, artillery for instance, or units with LMGs? Or is it an army that has almost all of it close combat SMG focused? That would make a difference for where you place the objectives. So objective placement is related to what you have in your list. So think about what it is that you have in your list and where you want the objectives to go then. Also, while you're doing it, because this also happens, right, in a context where the opponent places one objective and you places one objective, don't just mirror what he's doing. Always think about what it is that you want when you're doing that. There is a tendency for people to just, if an opponent places one objective there, you place one objective like a mirror of what he has placed. That's no good. You should always do your own thing, basically, when you're placing objectives. Yes, you might not get the area that you want, but you might get it. So place your objectives as you think they should be. Then you roll a dice, and that determines who is the attacker and who is the defender. Here, the decision is, there is a decision. The winner of the die roll, the roll-off, gets to choose to be attacker or defender. Now, there is a good choice here, because the defender picks a side of the table that they want. But the defender also deploys half his forces. And this is only 6 inches, so it's like half the deployment zone that you usually have. You have a very narrow deployment zone, and you pick a side and you deploy your forces before the opponent has deployed anything. So for me, I would always choose to be the attacker for this scenario, simply because when the defender deploys first, you can counter deploy. You can deploy your army on one flank, or you can place it so that the enemy hasn't got shots to you with his artillery. This is what I really enjoy doing. But other people might want to have that certain side of the board, as we talked about before, with the objectives loaded just right for you. So that might be a consideration. But if there's no side where you can see this is a clear advantage for me, you should choose to be the attacker if you can. Just choose to be the attacker and then counter deploy what the defender is doing. Does the 6-inch deployment zone make a huge difference? No, not really. It does mean that there's a lot more room between your armies. There's 12 inches more between your armies. But that doesn't matter that much, because you are going to have to push up into the table. I mean, if you're going to win by having more objectives, then you need to take the center objective, right? You need 3 objectives to the enemy's 2 in order to win. So you are going to have to push up, but that just means that you have to be able to move. So static armies might not be the best thing for this. Artillery might not be the best thing. And if you do have artillery, I think you should place at least some of the objectives as close to the board edges as you possibly can. It has to be, let's see here, placing one objective. The objectives cannot be placed within 18 inches or within 12 inches of other objectives. So you can actually place it right out on the board edge. I think you should. I think you should place that objective as far out in the deployment zone as you can if you have artillery, because you're going to need at least some artillery. And then think about where you want your artillery position to be when you're placing the objectives, right? If you have artillery and you have 2 objectives to place them in the deployment zones where you think artillery might want to go. That's the way to do that. You can outflank, you can forward deploy. I would use forward deployers close to the center. If you have Soviet scouts, again, my favorite forward deployers of all time, place them close to the center. If you have suicide anti-tank guys for Japan, close to the center, where they will be needed. They will be needed at that center point, because that is where everything is going to go. That is where the battle is going to be decided, right? So forward deployers towards that center. Outflankers, yes, you might actually do that, and if you can go down and contest one of the opponent's backline objectives, that might be a good idea. So this is one of these scenarios where outflanking really can be a huge benefit. So yeah, that is nuts. Cheers.